All right, legends, we are here for our buy, hold, and sell with Mr. Lachlan Smith, Scooper de Fuego himself. Can you please explain to me that name?
Well, it's a bit of a funny story, actually. It's like 10 years old. I haven't changed it in forever. It originally came from a Hot Wheels car, which I thought, wow, that sounds pretty cool. And it's apparently half Spanish for like scoop of fire or something along those lines. I'm just like, distinctive enough. That'll do.
I love that. And now you're known to the world as that exact name. And a terrific haircut. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to kick it off with some good buys, I think, this week. We just quickly off the bat, we've got Damian Cooks, Cam Murray's, DCEs, Clearys, Teddies, these types of guys. We already know screaming buys, get them into your team as many of them as you can. Some of these guys that we're going to talk about are probably a little bit less expensive. So if you don't have that amount of money to get someone in, then maybe one of these guys is the way we're going to play this video. So Dave Fafita kicks us off. Lockie, what are your thoughts on him, on what his return game in general? What were your thoughts?
It seemed like he did enough to got through enough work that he managed to push out a good score. This season's been a bit strange for him because he just hasn't really fired like the last few years where he's been one of those top elite, easy 60-plus scores every week all the time. But at mid-650s, you just can't ignore him. And now that he's back after that little injury, I think you really have to look at him, especially if you're running low on cash.
Yeah, I see that. 623, 645. So if we actually look at his two previous second row scores in round 5 and 6, he picked up a try and got 79 and 85. So you're getting, off the back of those two, and then a center game, a few interchange games. The biggest worry for him, I think, is that there's a chance that he goes back to those bench minutes, which last year he did okay with it, right? Because he was scoring tries and just being his damaging self. But I definitely see him as a risk. But if you're looking for someone who's priced at the 40, 45, 46 mark, who has the ability to go nuts, then I think he's probably a decent pick for you at 645. And he's owned by pretty much no one. I'm sure that'll change after lockout this round. But overall, an interesting guy, an interesting pick that could hit you that 100 that you might need to win a head-to-head as well. It's something if you can think about if you're looking to pick him up for head-to-head as well. So that's Dave Fafita. An interesting one. Probably divided, I think we are on this one, but definitely a solid pick. All right, Adam Dewey. We're going to get all the juicy ones out of the way early, just what everyone needs. Adam Dewey, 522K. For me, he's probably very interesting at that price compared to some of the other picks, which we'll speak about Latrell. He's 100K less than him, so keep that in mind when we have this discussion. But, Lockie, give me your thoughts.
Well, we knew from last year when he was at 5'8", he can score incredibly well. He was pushed to centre because they keep assisting with Luke Brooks and Hastings for a while, and last year Luke Brooks and can't remember at the top of my head now, but as soon as he moved back to 5'8" and he was named there, he was on my radar because he was getting cheaper from those lower centre scores, and then he proved that with that big return game. What was it, 83 last week? So although he's not got a monstrously low break even this week, I don't think that's updated, so there's like 75 or something. I really think with Pappenhausen going down, he and Latrell are probably the two go-to replacements.
Yeah, I think so too. And if we're looking to get some guys of higher prices in other positions, the Damian Cooks and Murrays and these types of players, then it might be worth going a little bit cheaper here. For someone that could probably score the same, or similar, they do come with a little bit more risk, Adam and also Latrell, compared to someone like Teddy, but definitely have their merit. And again, pod pick at this stage obviously will change after this round. And I believe, was it Moses Mbai they plugged in at 6 last year?
I think they changed it quite a lot. I think Mbai was there
at the start.
Yeah.
I was just like, they killed
me. I think I saw something the other day saying there's been like 96 halves pairings and Luke Brooks has been in most of them.
96? Holy shit.
Well, I was saying not halves, spine, and Luke Brooks was in all of them or nearly all of them.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. How do you win games when that's happening? All right, Dewey.
Yeah,
I'm happy to say that he's a good selection. If you looked at what happened last week, they're setting up the same in this one here. So the 83 involved him making all the kick meters, running like he normally does, and tackles solidly, and he's going to be kicking goals as well. He's just doing everything liken him to Nico Hines and Cleary with the amount that he's going to do, and you're going to get him at 522. So at worst, I think he's a 50 average player, and he's almost 200k lower than that at the moment. So I think he's a great selection for anyone looking for a cheaper guy. Latrell, on the other hand, I personally think he probably has a little bit more boom or bust in him than what Adam Dewey does. What are your thoughts on Latrell? Will you be thinking of picking him up, Loggy?
I'm probably going to go Dewey this week because I've got limited trades and don't want to risk those big boom and bust scores. As we know from last week, when he gets attacking stats, I think he got like 80 in attacking stats alone last week, and he ended up nearly 100. And that's a killer if you're in head-to-head. That alone can lose you your week, even if most other people went solidly. But he does have those 35s and 40s in him, as you can see earlier in the season and in the last couple of years. So he is that type of player, a little bit like a Mitch Moses, who can sometimes not do a lot, or then against weak teams absolutely go to town and get an 80 or a 90 instead of a 30. So he is somebody who looks really good if you think he's going to carry Souths towards the finals, because they're on the lower end of the finals. They'll need to do all they can to push themselves as high up as they can. I think he'll probably be a little bit more consistent, but I still don't trust his floor that it will be 45 every week, rather like Adam Dewey. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Dewey, although Dewey can go well, but I don't think he quite will score you every week, that consistent score. It depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair to think about for head-to-head guys as well. If you need that bit of a bump one week and potential boom or bust, then he could be the man. He's also a little bit less of a pod. So, if he absolutely kills it for the next bunch of weeks, that's kind of the FOMO thing that we're all feeling at the moment. I think there's a little bit of narrative there as well. He's come back and had 2 nice weeks, and the 43 there. He's done his rehab. He's come back. There's so much around him at the moment, and like, is he a better player than he was before? Is he going to play like he does in Origin every week? I feel like there's a lot of that as well as what people are going through. But definitely a solid pickup for sure. But you can get Dewey 100k cheaper. It's just what they do with that Tigers spine. Obviously, Kamali's come in and maybe put him in that situation. So maybe he really likes him there, and I can't say you could kick him out after how well he played last week, but we saw what happened last year. Anywho, so set for Fifita, it's a hard one to say actually, 255k there. After one game, he had a really lovely 50 with only the one bit of attacking stat being the line break. What are our thoughts on him? He gets his opportunity again. Marzu's out, so...
Yeah, they don't seem to like Marzu because he's got feet for hands, as they say. Corey Thompson is on the return, but I feel like it's a wing spot he's gonna be all right. The worry is that he will move out possibly for an Izako, or maybe Greg Marzu will come back in. So you're looking for that potential cash out option that could go really, really well. A bit like maybe like a Kiraz from 5-6 weeks back. His job security isn't amazing, but as you can see, 200 run meters. He's really got the base for a winger to really do some damage. If he adds a try or two, he's scoring you massive scores as a really cheap guy. I quite like him as a cash down if you need to make a couple of trades this week to get up to a gun. Are we
trading him in just to play him this week, or is it just to cash down?
Week to week, I would say cash down. It depends on the matchup, though. Like against Bulldogs this week, or against possibly St. George or Newcastle near the end of the season there, you could probably loop him. But on a week-to-week basis, you probably wouldn't want him in your 17, but it'd be close if he's going to get that base. I mean, it's a one-game sample, so who knows? He might go back to 30 on a week-to-week basis, but he looks, so far from what we've seen, like he's got a good base for a winger.
Fair. Yeah, my only real thoughts around that is if I'm going to just use him as a cash out, I'd probably go for just a 220 guy to use that extra cash. And if I was going to have someone to play, then I would actually go for this guy. Surprisingly, I'm actually coming around to Boothie. There's a few teams that are a few guys sending their teams into me, and they're sitting there with 3, potentially 4 cash outs or cash downs in their team. And that's an issue, right? You're sitting there with 17 only, and potentially two of those guys is like an Ezra Mam, a Cody Ramsey, these types of guys. So if you're going to cash down, I would understand you going to an Aaron Booth. It looks like, getting his first crack in that position. He played really well. There's potential that he could play more minutes. And in the hooking position, we know that the majority of your stats are going to come around those tackles. So he could be someone that we spoke about a bunch of weeks ago, that the only way I think you would have 4 cash outs in your team is if you would pick up a guy that has the potential to score around 40 a week. So you could use him as an 18th man and has the ability to make you some cash. And I think Booth actually could be that man rather than Fafita. What are your thoughts?
I think if he stays in that role, obviously 80-minute hooker, you pretty much have to buy him as nearly base price 80-minute hooker. But they were coming off Origin duties last week. Tino played, I think, only 29 minutes, and Aaron Clark played in the lock role. Aaron Clark's on the bench this week. I'll be interested to see where he moves, or where Tino moves, whether he goes to prop because he did so well in Origin. Aaron Clark did really quite well at lock last week. And whether they decide to split the hooker minutes, or whether they decide to mould Aaron Clark towards a lock, given that little experiment worked well.
Yeah, I definitely think I can see it going both ways too, and that's the scary bit. It could be like, 40-minute role at hooker, or he could be working towards that straight out hooker that they need, because Aaron Clark is great through the middle. We saw that last year, and that's why it was a little bit strange that he originally got that 9 position. But it sounds like I listened to that video of Boothie getting his first jersey there, and he was, obviously the amount of injuries and stuff that he's had throughout the last bunch of seasons. I'm assuming at the start of this one, which stopped him getting that opportunity. And he comes from the Storm mold, so he's obviously going to have a decent work ethic and good talent. So he's definitely interesting. It's also a definite risk if you're thinking about him. Hastings is the interesting one as well. So comes into the 13 last week, picks up a 76. Sorry, that wasn't that one. 73, very close. In the lock position, 57 in base. Are we interested in him?
Not quite yet. We've been burnt by Hastings before this year, obviously, with his foot. He looked like he was raring and ready to go for a lot of work, 41 tackles, 161 meters. I sort of heard consistent whispers early throughout the season that, Hastings might be moving to lock this week, and it never happened, and now it has, so maybe it'll be there longer term. I think, though, because of his playmaking ability, he does turn into that ultimate ball-playing 13, which is really good because it can give you some attack and it will give you that base. If he puts up another good score this week, I'll be really interested in bringing him in as probably my third keeper half. I don't think how many games is it? No, he's not going to have enough to get dual, which is unfortunate, but he'll still be great.
The last duels were after 18, I believe, so
yeah,
we're all done.
Yeah, he only had, so...
Yeah, he's definitely interesting. That's what we can say. They did and the try, the 10 meters that he kicked was actually a try. So he might end up moving into that 7 position again because he has such a good boot. But obviously, if his foot's still struggling, then might be the reason why they went for him at 13. I'm definitely going to wait a week on him. I don't think you're going to be in too much trouble. If he scores another 60, let's say, he might be a 560, 570 type of player, and that's still super cheap for a guy that's going to average over 50. So I think you can wait on Hastings. Guys like Latrell and definitely Latrell, his price is rocketing, is like this week or not at all. I think for Latrell, Dewey is this week or potentially next week. I think Hastings, you can wait a week. All right, Ponga, quick chat on him. Obviously, a couple of 50s in a row for him, which is great. 56 and a 50 his last 2 games, and that 104 or whatever he got in Origin. So he's in great form, but the Knights aren't playing great. Do we look to him or do we look to pass when you've got guys like Dewey and also Latrell?
If you've got real problems in your wing fullback, you probably should be shoring them up. I'd be looking at him as a next week buy potentially, and a big watch this week. The Knights draw towards the end of the year is pretty soft. You've got Canterbury Tigers and Titans there, as well as there's no real absolute killer teams other than the Roosters. So he could get a couple more attacking stats than he has previously. It's just his price that's really attractive. He's probably not that top tier. He's probably that 4th gun that you'll want in the wing fullback position, your backup. And under 500k, that seems really cheap for Kalen Ponga. So I'll be interested to watch how he scores this week. A little bit like Hastings.
He's definitely not the worst option, is he? But with other guys that are similar in price, you'd probably go for them first. If we only had, it was like Tedesco or nothing in the middle, then I think Ponga becomes a bit more attractive. Munster, a bit under 800k, so we get him slightly below what we get from DCE. They're both probably going to score similarly throughout the year. I think they're both great buys. I think more probably going to base it off which one you like watching more. To be honest with you, in this one here, he came back, had a terrific game after COVID, so there's no stress about that. He did have 2 lighter games before that, so just be aware that he is someone who's going to be a little bit more up and down compared to DCE, and I would just base it off what you can handle more. Yeah, obviously, they're going to average similar across the year, but up and down compared to DCE, so sort of between the 50 to the 85, where Munster could get you 90 a few weeks in a row and then get you 235s. Anything to add, Log?
I think the site might be a week outdated or not updated since teamlets, because I think his break even isn't 78 because he pretty much met it last week and didn't move in price. But as you can see, his ownership is pretty much nil in the top players. So if you really want to go spicy, you could go Munster instead of DCE and sort of hope he outscores him and sort of anti-pod DCE by not having him in your team. I personally think you'd want both because DCE just looks so appealing. But if you wanted to go down the route of not owning DCE and having Munster instead, that's a really interesting one because he's been averaging pretty much the same this year. And heading into finals, Melbourne need to play well to hold on to that top 4 spot. They've lost 3 in a row now. And I just really like how he's a little bit cheaper than DCE now and so much lower ownership as well.
Yeah, it's the important thing with guys like Munster, DCE, Teddy. They all need to step up for their teams to actually keep good spots in the top 8. So, yeah, I think he's going to have a good back end of the season. This is an interesting one here. Yeah, but the break-evens are never actually perfectly correct anyway. They're like semi-close, but they're definitely way out this week. They haven't been updated. Thankfully, the scores are in though. And cheers to footystatistics.com. We appreciate you, always. No hate. Lucy, 493. Okay, he gets the starting front rower position this week. My main worry is Ruben Cotter probably back next week. He is not a middle. He was when he first came into the league, but he's been playing edge since then. What kind of minutes is he going to get? Is it going to be 40? Is it going to be 50? Is it going to be 35? What is it going to be? But obviously a great score last week, and we know what he can do. Anything to add?
I'm interested to see what his role will be when Cotter gets back, because Gilbert's going to the Dolphins, I believe. And so if he takes Gilbert's role of most of the game at edge and then some middle, he could push out some pretty decent scores because he has been a mid-50s or low 50s scorer in the past. And in a stronger team than the Tigers by far, in the Cowboys, I reckon he could go really, really well. So in the next 2 or 3 weeks, depending on what his role is when Cotter returns, he might be an interesting pickup, but it's hard to fit him in your team if he's not looking like he's going to be a certain gun. Just one to watch interestingly this week.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a wait and see. But that Gilbert point is pretty interesting. If he can get that, he's going to score really well. Gilbert has, and he's a better scorer, but currently a better player, I'd say, than Gilbert, even though Gilbert played Origin. Payne Haas, do we just slot him back into our teams?
You'd really love to, hey, because he is one of the guns. He's mid-60s when fit. I'm just worried since he's had 2 dead shoulders and dead ankle or whatever it was, the foot injury. He might not be quite top level, but he is mid-600s, which if he even gets mid-50s or 60 instead of 65, that's a keeper. That's a strong keeper and underpriced. So you'll very likely be wanting to slot Haas in the next couple of weeks before he starts going back up in price.
Yeah, you probably just worry, is he at his damaging best? That's probably a worry. Like, he's definitely going to be serviceable for a plus 50 score average, but is he going to be that 60s guy that we've known him to be? And that's the question I don't think anyone knows except for him and the guys in the Broncos camp, to be honest with you. Cam Mckinnis, this one's killing me. Why does everyone want to move him on? I don't get it. I do get it, but I don't. Like, he's playing similar minutes on the bench that he was. Obviously, he has some like mid 60s to 70s minutes when everyone was away. but he's still hitting over 50 on a weekly basis. So I get it slightly, but also don't.
Yeah, it hurts to see him come off the bench rather than the starting team, but the last couple of weeks he has got decent minutes. I was waiting particularly for this week's minutes because Rudolph was out in round 17, if I remember right, and I thought that might have increased his minutes because the couple before that, it had gone down a fair bit when Finucane returned. But last week with the decent minutes with everybody there, it made it look like he's probably a keep. So just an interesting point for those wanting to potentially sell or hold. Last week was a good indicator that he might be more of a hold now. So just keep watching him, but I think he should turn out fine.
Still 80 people own him in the top 100. That means something. That means something. Yeah, like, he's just someone that's going to get you 50 every week. He can potentially go higher than that, but let's just say he averages 50 for the rest of it. He's priced just under that, pretty well accordingly. But how many guys do, we're going to talk about Barnett in a sec. I've spoken about him being like a 70 guy, then get a 30, 70, 30. He literally got 75 last week, 2 weeks ago, and got a 35 this week. Like, sell him. You know what I mean? So, like, Cam McKinnis, you don't have that feeling. You just go, he notches out that 50. Yes, you might want him to get 55 or 60, and if he was getting more minutes, he would. But there's got to be more issues in your team, I think, than someone like Cam McKinnis. I would be trading on someone like Taumalolo more, but before I would trade McKinnis. He's so up and down. So, yeah, general thoughts. And if there's an injury, he can get big ones too. If there's an injury at 9, he can go in and play 9. Like, there's so much going on there. Dylan Brown, this is someone I would definitely move on before McKinnis, which I'm seeing people trade McKinnis before him. Just way too many 40s. Do we just think if we can, upgrade him to someone like DCE, Munster, Cleary? Do you just do it?
I think so. With Dewey, potential halves, although I'd probably put him in when fullback. DCE and Munster looking so juicy. Let's have a look. Other than that 81 round 12,
it's just not enough.
He hasn't cracked 50 since like round 9. If he hadn't done that 80, you would have got rid of him ages ago. I'm pretty sad that he's kind of been chugging along, sputtering and not doing much, but I think he's good to move on.
Next.
For an upgrade.
I'm annoyed with him. Next. I'm also annoyed with this guy. How does Jerome Hughes score so low every week? It's killing me.
Yeah. I'm wondering how much the new rules are affecting him, because last year he was able to do a lot of damage. It doesn't feel like he would be that much of a backward step though this year, but
it kind of just still getting heaps of tackle busts for majority of weeks. But like, even the issue there, he's got 8 tackle breaks in 2 of the last 3 games, and he's still hit 44 and a 40. He's running he's averaging 100 meters. He's actually kicking a lot still. Like, he's averaging close to 280 meters there, and scoring tries in odd weeks as well. It's not like he's been missing out on them. So it's just there might be the rule changes. It's just a few things. Obviously, the tackle break change being 3-2 affects him more than it does others, but it hasn't affected Munster that much. So really weird.
He's probably also a big victim of the kick meters as well. Both of those combined, plus the slightly slower rules, probably all combined just to shut him down, unfortunately, as a scorer. So,
do you go Brown out before Hughes or Hughes before Brown? They're 20k difference, I think. 25.
Probably just Brown, because he's just, as an owner, I'm biased and he's annoying me. I want to get him out of there as fast as I can.
I got both, so.
Yeah, he's as well.
Yeah. And I think Hughesy is in a team, as you said, with Munster, they need to kind of get their ass into gear. Obviously, the Eels do as well, but more chance of seeing it from Storm than you are of Eels, if we're being honest. And that made a lot of sense. I know for you, I said it last time, or heard it somewhere, that how good the Eels were going at the beginning of the year, and they've kind of dropped off a bit, which has in turn seen Brownie drop off. So they kind of have to turn it around. Benny Hunt, just not scoring well enough, is he? Really?
No, we were all looking at him when he dropped as which week do we buy? And he kind of just hasn't done a lot. He's like, that 63 got us intrigued a little while ago, and then he got pretty much bang on 50 for quite a while, and then he's dropped. So I think the interest in him is gone. If you're holding him, you can sell. I think he's not as big of a sell as probably Brown and Hughes, but he's got to be close to a sell at the very least.
Yeah, he's got a couple of,
especially when there's better guys you can upgrade to. You're losing 10, 15 points if you're not having DCE there instead.
And I think a few got excited last week after his Origin heroics, but he's just a different player at 7 for the Dragons. than what he is for 9 for the Maroons. It's crazy. He's so good and just fills up that stat sheet, which he does here, but he just has so many more missed tackles. All right, Josh Jackson, are we just content on holding him at the moment? He did have obviously HIA, which made him lose 15 minutes on the weekend. He had 47 in that time. Sorry, scratch that. Where are we? Around 18. 45 in that time. I was very close. 13 minutes he missed out on. And are we just fine with holding him? Like, if he gets to 80 in that second row, he would have picked up a low 50s on the weekend.
Yeah, I'm fine. Guys like Jackson and Lolo and stuff, I'm happy with holding. They're sort of doing their job as a low 50s keeper.
Yeah.
There is an argument that you could upgrade them to a Murray or an Isaiah Papali'i if you don't have either of them, because they are a definite upgrade, but that's really luxury trade, and I don't think many people have any real reason to go that hard this late in the season.
No. And dual position too. Helps us out. Frears, do we sell him now? Is it just too late after a few of us brought him in to pick up?
I jumped on straight away thinking it'd be great. He got me 50, and then he just 2 poor scores, and now he's hurt his ribs. Yeah. And ribs are never a good injury for fantasy, so I really think, although he's lost us a lot of money, he is probably a sell. That's probably why a lot more people are interested in Fafita this week, as a similar price bracket to guys like Frizzell and Barnett. And a definite upgrade in my opinion. If they just upgrade. Yeah.
It feels like, and the ribs one, as you said, it definitely hangs around, which is annoying for him. And he's obviously a contact guy, 40 tackles, 120 meters. Yeah, makes it tough. Just a bit unfortunate one. He picked up 29, 39, 40. Ugh, yuck. Tamalolo, we're pretty happy to say that he's just a clear hold. If he scored that try last week, he's in the 60s. He obviously has had a couple of lower ones, 44, 48, and a 47 the last 3 weeks, but 69, 66 before that. Do we just hold stead?
Yeah, I think he's fine. Unless Cotter's return really takes his work rate away, I think he's just fine. He's a bit like Josh Jackson. He's doing his job. Yeah. No real reason to move him on unless it's absolute luxury, and you've got like 6 trades left this week.
We'd like a couple more. Yeah, we'd like a couple more minutes, I'd say. Get him back into the low to mid 60s. So 56 and 58 is okay, but we need some attacking stats and a few more tackles, which he just doesn't do. So 65 minutes would be great. All right, we have 6 more to go. We got Barnett, just a quick one there. What are our thoughts on him? Again, he's that up and down scorer, 74, 35, 62, 72, 49. 52, 38, these are all last year. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, again,
my worry for Barnett is now that he's at lock. Kurt Mann disappeared the other week, and I was very surprised as to why. And I think he was just dropped for Fitzgibbon coming back in, and Barnett moved to lock. This week, Mann's on the bench. I don't know whether that's going to be like a Connor Watson thing last year where he'll come on and play a lot of the game and Barnett will move into the second row, or what's going to happen. But if he's not playing 80 at the edge, Barnett's not anywhere near as appealing for fantasy. So I think he's a pretty decent sell if you have a couple of trades. His dual and his recent scores would possibly make you want to hold another week just to make sure nothing's going on. But I think he's a pretty good sell candidate this week for an upgrade. The thing is as well, Fitzgibbon, I think Fitzgibbon's dad is a Knights sponsor as well, so who knows what that plays into, who gets in and who stays out.
Yeah, him being back is tough, and that's been the thing. He just moves around all the time. All right, just a couple of potential holds/sells this week, and maybe who we'd rank. We've got Kohler. King's a bit more expensive, but like Mam, we got Ramsey, we've got Xavier Savage, and Taylor May. Which ones are we going to rank to sell first, and which ones do you like to hold as more of a... We know their stats, we know what's going on. What would you go for?
I would probably sell Mam close to first, because he's getting close to his peak. He's not going to do much more. Savage, I think, is more of a hold now that Nickel Klokstad's moving to the Warriors. I think he's got that spot sewn up. I think he can just continue to do a job in your emergencies, climb a little bit more. Kohler's going really well. I don't think you should sell him unless you've got amazing cover like Joey Manu or something. But if even Joey Manu back at centre isn't as good as he is in 5'8" or fullback, I think Cole is really more of a hold than most people on this list. Taylor May you could be able to sell, especially if you've got both him and Kohler.
Yep.
You don't need two
too.
sort of backup keepers for those positions.
Bit more cash to use, right, to upgrade.
Yeah. That's also a plus in selling Taylor May. Who else was that? Max King.
A couple of tougher teams like this next few weeks too. Cronulla, Para, Canberra, Melbourne, Rabbitohs. So I think
that's probably a good to sell actually, and Cows in last round too. So it's probably a good argument to get rid of him over, say, a Kohler.
Perfect. All right. Remove Kohler's, I think, definitely a hold this week. Let's go for Maxi King. Do you look to move him on now with the minutes slight drop with Tavita Pangai back in action? 2 48-minute efforts at prop the last 2 weeks. Is it time to upgrade?
I think he's, of those borderline keeper mids, I think he's probably the easiest upgrade. He's not definitely a keeper. We haven't seen his role long term like some other guys, like Taumalolo and Mckinnis. We know they can do good things for us in the low 50s. Max King, we don't know that for certain. He's at a similar-ish price, and I think he's a good one to move on up to like a Murray this week.
And he's real sneaky if you want to go straight sideways at price to David Fafita. Cheeky. If you want to play that, they're the same. 620 odd, 640, whatever. Is cool. Yeah, man, 479. You get a decent price for him to sell. Obviously, he's kind of doing well enough, but are you really happy playing him each week? 45, 47, 37, 31 in there, 40. So, and that's with some tries involved too. That's the interesting one with Mam. I think you're okay to trade him. Someone like Ramsey, just general scoring the last few weeks has been good. He obviously has a 21 in there, so we're looking to avoid that. But a 54, 52, and 47 is like, cool. If we get another couple of games like that, we can get him to about a 530, 540 and then sell. But if he hits that 20, then it's like, straight swap.
Yeah, and then
him on. Like
slams into a wall.
Yeah, so it's not, he wouldn't obviously lose money, but I suppose you could wait a little bit longer, whereas Man probably stops in the next 20K. Ramsey's got probably another 50 or 60 just based on that last couple of scores in a row. So that's Ramsey. But again, very close to being sold. And Xavier, that little bit cheaper, so you probably got a little bit more runway with him. And he has that spot. Clearly, he's in a decent, like a team in form. And they come up against Warriors, Titans the next few weeks. So maybe after those two games, you move on from Savage.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And then he runs into Penrith as well. That could be a low score where it drops. You could ride that last little bit of money in that Penrith game if he's still got a low break even. But if it's starting to head north, I think that's a good week to sell.
Hectic. Well, that's that. Awesome. Pumped through plenty of names, and I hope that helped everyone out in this one. Check back in those last couple of videos I did today, the Q&A, and obviously the analysing teams makes it a little bit easier. You can picture your team plugged in there if yours wasn't spoken about. And I think we would have answered every question for the week. So I appreciate you, Scoop, in the Discord as well. I know in the questions for Jamie, there's a lot of Lachlan Smith replying. So I do appreciate that. I know you're actually getting a fair bit of love in all the analysing teams. People are putting your name in there. So thanks so much for everything you do. And I know everyone appreciates it.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Thanks for all the vids. Thanks for having me on again. And I hope this helps you guys this week.
Awesome. See you, everyone. Have a good week. Cheers, Loggy.